October 13, 2007. Mid-afternoon. Nam Talu Cave, Khao Sok National Park, southern Thailand. 9 people stepped into the narrow stream passage. 6 tourists, 2 Thai guides, and a mix of nationalities that included a Swiss family, a 10-year-old German boy named Eddie Gemp, and a 21-year-old British woman, Helena Carroll. The cave was known for its scenic, shallow water passages. It was the middle of the rainy season, but no rain had fallen at the entrance that morning. The sky looked stable. The group had come for a routine guided tour. They walked deeper, following the gentle flow of water that barely reached their ankles. Within minutes the water began to rise. The guides noticed it first. A slow creep. Nothing dramatic. They continued. Then, without warning, a wall of water surged from upstream. Rain that had fallen hours earlier in the distant mountains, channeled through the cave's complex watershed. The tunnel transformed in seconds. The current strengthened. Panic set in. One guide shouted for everyone to climb a slope toward higher ground. Some reached it. Most did not. The flood filled the narrow sections completely, leaving no airspace. The passage was barely wide enough for single file. There was nowhere to go. 8 of the 9 people inside drowned. Helena Carroll was the only survivor. She clung to a narrow ledge above the raging water for more than 16 hours in total darkness before rescuers reached her. The bodies of the Swiss couple and their 2 teenage daughters, the German boy, the other British tourist, and both Thai guides were recovered downstream or inside the cave. The disaster made headlines across Thailand. Authorities closed Nam Talu to tours during the rainy months. Signs were posted. Seasonal bans from June to November were ordered. The message was clear. Upstream rain turns this cave into a death trap. The warning was ignored. 17 years later, on August 6, 2024, another group entered the same cave, despite the official closure. 22 tourists and 2 Thai guides. The skies were clear that morning. Rain had fallen the night before, but surface conditions looked safe. They began their tour in the afternoon. At around 5 p.m. as the group was making its way out, the same upstream surge hit. Water roared through the narrow tunnel. Thai rescue teams arrived quickly and pulled 31 people to safety. But one guide, 37-year-old Kongyat Pongdi, was swept away while helping others. His body was found the next morning, flushed against the back of the cave. The tour operator had violated the seasonal ban. Legal action followed. The park confirmed the cave should have been off-limits. 2 nearly identical tragedies. Same cave. Same mechanism. Same chain of small, seemingly reasonable decisions. Caves are among the most unforgiving environments on Earth. Confined spaces. Total darkness. Sudden environmental shifts that give no warning. A single misjudgment, entering during the wrong season, pushing deeper when water rises, choosing an unexplored passage, can turn a routine visit into catastrophe. These are not freak accidents caused by one dramatic error. They are the result of chains, overlooked weather data, underestimation of risk, the human tendency to believe it won't happen to us. The margin between life and death is measured in inches of water, minutes of delay, or the width of a fissure. Nam Talu Cave showed the world what flash flooding looks like in a drainage-sensitive system. But the same pattern of preventable death repeats across continents and decades. November 24, 2009. Nutty Putty Cave, Utah, United States. 26-year-old medical student John Edward Jones was exploring the popular cave with family and friends during Thanksgiving break. Nutty Putty was known for its tight, winding passages, challenging but accessible to experienced cavers. John had caved before. He reached a section near Ed's Push, a narrow vertical fissure that most people avoided. Believing it led to a familiar turnaround called the birth canal, he entered headfirst. The opening was only 10 inches by 18 inches, barely wide enough for his 200-pound, 6-foot frame. 400 feet from the entrance, the fissure dead-ended. John was now wedged upside down, his body compressed, blood pooling in his head and chest. He could not move. Rescuers arrived within hours. They worked in shifts in the claustrophobic space, trying every technique. Ropes, pulleys, even attempting to widen the rock slightly. For 27 hours they fought to free him. John remained conscious for most of it, talking to rescuers, encouraging them, describing the increasing pain and numbness. At one point they almost had him upright. Then he slipped back. The inverted position caused positional asphyxia. His heart eventually gave out. He was pronounced dead at 11:56 p.m. on November 25. The cave was permanently sealed with his body inside. It remains closed to this day, a tomb carved by water and rock. John's death was not the result of a single reckless act. It was a chain, choosing an unmapped side passage because it looked promising, entering head first instead of feet first, continuing when the space narrowed beyond comfort. Reasonable decisions in the moment, until the cave's narrow geometry made reversal impossible. These tragedies highlight the thin, invisible line that separates adventure from disaster in underground environments. In Nam Talu, the environment was the killer, upstream rainfall that no one at the entrance could see. In Nutty Putty, it was human limitation inside an unforgiving squeeze. Both cases began with ordinary choices: a tour operator deciding the weather looked fine, a caver deciding one more passage was worth exploring. Both ended the same way: sudden, irreversible entrapment in darkness and water or stone. The pattern is as old as caving itself, yet the lessons are rarely learned. Back in Thailand, the 2007 disaster should have ended tours in Nam Talu during the wet season forever. Signs were installed. Regulations were written. Yet in 2024, another operator quietly resumed trips when surface conditions appeared calm. The group entered in the afternoon. They were already on their way out when the flood hit. The second guide died trying to save the others, another act of ordinary heroism in an avoidable situation. The investigation confirmed the violation of the closure policy. But the cave's hydrology had not changed. The watershed still funneled distant rain into sudden, deadly surges. Small decisions compounding, ignoring the seasonal ban because it hasn't rained here today, assuming the group could exit quickly, underestimating how fast a cave can fill when the mountains miles away are drenched. In every case, the turning point arrives without fanfare. In Nam Talu 2007, the water rose from ankle-deep to 10 meters in minutes. In Nutty Putty, the fissure that looked passable became a vertical trap the instant John committed his full weight. No dramatic warning. Just the quiet click of inevitability, the moment when retreat is no longer an option. Caves expose the limits of human perception. We cannot see upstream rain. We cannot feel the exact pressure a narrow passage will exert on a body until it is too late. We rely on experience, equipment, and judgment, tools that fail when the environment shifts faster than our brains can process. A guide notices rising water and decides to push on because the group is already committed. A caver spots a promising opening and assumes it mirrors one he has seen before. Reasonable choices, made in good faith by people who have done similar things dozens of times. Until the one time the cave decides otherwise. The victims were not reckless thrill-seekers chasing danger. They were tourists on a scenic tour, families celebrating a holiday, a medical student exploring with friends. Ordinary people who trusted the environment, the guides, and their own instincts. The caves simply did what caves do. They flooded, they narrowed, they waited for the next person to make the same chain of small decisions that had killed those before them. After John Jones's death, Nutty Putty Cave was sealed with concrete and rebar. Nam Talu received new warning signs and stricter enforcement. Yet the 2024 incident proved enforcement alone is not enough when the reward of a quick tour outweighs the remembered risk. These places remain dangerous not because of malice, but because the forces at work, gravity, hydrology, geology, are indifferent to human plans. The tragedies were preventable. Not by superhuman caution or exotic technology, but by breaking the chain at any single link. Heeding seasonal closures, turning back at the first sign of rising water, choosing only mapped passages, respecting the documented limits of the human body in confined spaces. Each death was the final step in a sequence of decisions that, taken individually, seemed safe. That is the cruelest truth of cave disasters. They rarely announce themselves with obvious peril. They arrive through the accumulation of ordinary choices, each one logical, each one survivable, until the cave closes the door behind you. The water rises. The passage narrows. The air runs out. And the darkness, which was always waiting, claims what the chain of reasonable decisions delivered. These stories are not warnings against exploration. They are reminders that in caves the margin for error is measured in minutes and inches. The environment does not negotiate. It simply responds to the forces it has followed for millions of years. The only variable we control is whether we choose to enter when every link in the chain is still intact. The most preventable deaths are the ones we keep repeating. Because the caves have not changed. We have simply chosen, again and again, to believe the next time will be different.